let you put it to sleep.
All right, audio's up.
Or, go with the pro version.
Play nice,
That's
kids.
freaking ridiculous.
Do you guys hear Alex?
Is that the pro version now?
That's on this laptop?
Yeah, is
I
it
don't
pro
know.
or home?
I'll have to check. It's whatever the OEM install is on this Lenovo, but
Yeah.
it's the OLED
Probably
Yoga,
home.
so it should be. I don't know. It might be Pro.
If there is, I can send you the GP, the group policy thing you can switch to make it just defer them.
Please send it to me either way. Because actually, that was pretty quick. Whatever that update was.
Maybe it was to make your machine reboot faster.
This is like, we just want to reboot to screw with you.
It's actually the update that will let you now snooze your updates.
Ironical. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Adjust my computer.
All right, phones off.
Off.
Well, silent. Nearly quiet. Vibrate.
This is Pro.
All right.
Is this 2 weeks in a row for me being here?
It is.
It is.
Ooh, won't be here next week. Sorry, guys. Just put that out there right away.
In the slackers off.
Let's set expectations accordingly. When Alan talks, I'll just play
People listen.
Zelda.
Well, if you're gonna do that, we want to watch too.
You mean when Josh talks?
Hey, get a camera on that.
Yeah, where's the
I
overhead?
don't have any articles
Oh,
this
the
week, so I
overhead.
can't speak ad nauseum.
You want the mic on there?
That's picking it up just fine.
Okay,
I think.
Nintendo's gonna cut off our stream.
True.
Oh, that's true.
Ooh, a shrine. Are they still doing
think
that
they
crap?
screw around
wait,
with that?
wait, hold on. My problem as an adult with like crap to do is that I can really only play these games 20, 30, maybe an hour at a time. And a game that takes 80 hours to complete or more, like there's just tons of stuff to do. It's very easy to lose track of what the hell you're supposed to be doing. Like I had that problem when I played Skyrim as well.
So you're saying you're a filthy casual?
Yeah, because I have a job and responsibilities. Correct.
Ah, stupid adulting.
That's funny. It kind of
Only
sounds like me at my
benchmarks
job.
now.
Period.
Well, yeah.
Also
Yeah,
wearing the wrong shirt.
I should probably spell
Hey
my
Ryan, I saw you on an Android Police vlog when I was at Qualcomm.
Android Police.
Android Police, huh? Was
Here's
I,
a
was I in
Josh.
trouble?
Little known Sting song.
No, I don't believe my Switch is scratched from dock insertion.
How many times has it been in the dock?
Forcible
That's the only
insert?
place I charged it. So well, I mean, it's probably 4 or 5 times. Mostly, I play on the couch while my wife and daughter are watching TV.
Is it scratching the back? The soft touch stuff on the
No,
back?
it scratches apparently in the bezel area of the glass.
Oh.
Which is really horrible design flaw for the dock. I will say that I don't know why I'm talking about this now, but when you dock it, it doesn't like lock into
Yeah,
place.
it is kinda
feels
like-
wobbly,
Yeah.
which is stupid. Like I didn't
Feels
know if it
less
was
wobbly than if you're trying to charge it while you're using it.
Come on, lock it, don't dock it.
All right, are we ready? We good? We recording in our spots?
I have to change glasses so that they are less glare filled.
Oh, did you get
Affects me not at all.
Did
but
you get
sure.
reduced glare?
No, I'm using my old glasses.
Oh, were they reduced glare?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
See, reduced glare.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna hit record and we're not gonna crash.
We're gonna fingers crossed here.
Don't look at me.
I try not to.
My office is a disaster. They tore apart my kitchen, and
Why is that? Hold on, go
again,
back to that shot for a minute.
everything has been moved into my office.
Want to scoot that over and crop it out a little
Nope,
bit?
I did it.
You don't have a kitchen?
I don't have a kitchen, but I do have a microwave in my laundry room and a refrigerator in my dining room.
Wait, that's a quote. This
Maybe that doesn't work.
That's bachelor living if I ever heard it.
I don't have a kitchen, but I have a microwave in my laundry room.
As the
It's
father
like being in
of
college
a,
again.
as a father of an almost 2-year-old, I don't want to have the explanation. I don't want to have. I'm watching this TV from across the room where there's this freaking Cialis commercial on, right? Because she hears all these words and she repeats them.
What's an erection, Dad?
Right, and she's gonna be like, "What's an erection?" And I'll be like, "God, jeez." I feel like those shouldn't be allowed on the air.
I'm inclined to agree with you.
Good Lord, you become a parent already, haven't you? You're
I mean,
one of
to be
those
fair,
dads.
before I had kids, I always felt squeamish when the word erection was said on TV, like when I'm watching basketball with my mother, right? And a Cialis commercial comes
Now
on.
it's the other way around.
And I'm like, if you have an erection that lasts longer than 4 hours, I'm like, oh my God.
Call your doctor and say, dude,
Why, did you have one at the time?
Dude.
high five.
Ugh.
So that your doctor can ask if he can have some of what you're having.
And on that note,
Let's start the show.
Priapism is nothing to joke about.
True.
Okay.
Okay.
I used to work in an ER.
I don't want to hear any of those stories. Thank you.
No,
Are you
no,
sure?
you don't.
Priapism
I'm
stories.
very sure.
Blood squirts up to the ceiling. It's amazing.
All right, here we go.
Pressure. Very high pressure.
Are we done now?
Good Lord, what are you doing to me today, Shaw?
Shaw
ever
being
done?
the internet provider, not a random person. Gotcha.
Yes.
All right.
I don't know. I don't know if that's on our side.
Is Josh look low frame?
I don't
rate?
know. What do I look like? I'm less blue than usual, which is odd because,
Yeah.
like down in the dumps and stuff.
It's actually rendering on the Skype client fine, but when I switched this over to use the full desktop capture and we did the quad, but it looks like it was running a lot better using direct capture.
Is your card on fire?
Not yet. We put an extra fan on it.
Is that what that industrial fan was for?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
All right. Well, we'll go with it.
Yep.
Here we go. 3, 2. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 440, being recorded on March 8th, 2017. I'm Ryan Schraub.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom. He's Josh Walrath.
There's Jeremy.
I'm Josh Walrath.
Oh, the other guy.
Let's start this one out.
Hey, let's try that again. Holy crap. I changed up one
How
of
come the stream quality went down dramatically?
What are you talking
Because
about?
we started.
Jeremy's packets are laggy.
No, I'm looking at you guys too. It's a little fuzzy.
What are you talking about? Are you watching the stream?
Well, from my Skype. I don't know. Start again. See what
It's
happens.
fuzzy, not just frame rate.
I don't know. Ask the people in the thing. The place where we talk to them.
Kind of don't want to.
Smart
Never
man.
read the comments.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's try again.
All right, we're going Jeremy first, right?
Yes.
No,
All right.
Yep.
Ryan first.
Yeah, well,
He's more senior than I
technically
am.
Ryan. Yeah, it goes in order of seniority. Me, Jeremy, Josh, Alan.
All right.
All right. Here we go. 3, 2. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 440, being recorded on March 8th, 2017. I'm Ryan Schraub.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And now I'm Alan Malentano.
Second time's a charm. What can I say?
Yep.
So welcome to the show, everybody. It has been an incredibly interesting week.
Mm-hmm.
Ryzen was released. I think our post edit worked out pretty well on the podcast. You think it went pretty well, Alex? Yeah. So we're not going to talk about our full review of Ryzen and all that, but we have a lot of fallout from Ryzen that we're going to discuss. First of all, let's point out we are recording this. We do broadcast live for our recording at pcper.com/live on Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. At pcper.com/live. If you aren't good at setting your own schedule and you need alarm clocks and reminders, you can go to pcper.com/subscribe. You get this page here that asks for your name and your email address, and we will send you a notification an hour, 40 minutes, whatever it happens to be, before the live stream begins. Sometimes it's 5 minutes before, sometimes it's 5 minutes after. I'm going to be realistic with you. But the point is, we will let you know when it occurs. So sign up there, pcpro.com/subscribe, and it's not just for the podcast, but any other live streams that we may or may not be doing, which I will discuss momentarily. Also, of course, we have our still running Patreon campaign. That is at patreon.com/PCPro. This is your capability to directly contribute to PC Perspective, to the guys that write it and put it together and, I don't know, do this dumb show for you, as well as all the content on the website. If you go here, this is your capability to kind of directly, monthly contribute to what we do. If you feel like we do good stuff, you run ad blockers or you don't, this is your way of kind of feedback, and we greatly appreciate all of you that are supporting us through that matter. And of course, if you increase your contribution and or become a new patron during the live stream, I will read your names on the show as such
in a moaning voice filled with enthusiasm and passion.
Well, okay.
Why Cialis for Ryan?
See, that would have been a good one. Instead, if you could see what I'm seeing, these guys need the money. Just edited their pledge. There's only a couple of guys that can really be this one. I think they're in the room. Was it you? Did you edit your Patreon? No,
I did not edit my Patreon.
Well, thank you, sir. I guess I'll take it in a good joke. I did put up an air freshener near his side of the office, so all in jest and good fun. So that's the first one we got. And also, I do want to make sure everybody remembers or knows, if you're watching this live or if you're listening after the fact, if you listen to it early enough, we are having another live stream tomorrow afternoon to discuss the GeForce GTX 1080 Ti. Reviews will go up tomorrow. It'll go on sale the day after. We're going to have Tom Peterson in the office here replacing Alan. Thank goodness. At the table. And we're going to talk about the 1080 Ti. We're going to talk about its performance and its pricing and why they decided to do the pricing the way they did. And, we'll ask questions that he'll probably slide around and not accurately answer, like, oh, is it because of an AMD Vega that you did this? And those types of things.
Well, wouldn't that be interesting if that's the way it was, Ryan?
Yeah, wouldn't it be?
That would be a great idea.
And also, we're going to talk about FCAT VR. So the VR performance analysis tools that they announced last week with the 1080 Ti that we've been using for a while. We're going to go over some details of what that is, how it works, and why we think it's important. And I think more people are going to be interested in that than the previous FCAT revisions, because you can actually run this at home, right? You can just... You don't have to have capture hardware to use this. You can actually just run this in software only and get really interesting data out of it that you can't get.
And the software capture works in such a way that it does not interfere with your frame rates or your whatever. It's not a GPU load thing. It's capturing metadata.
Yeah,
right?
It's capturing data from either the Steam VR API, the Oculus API, just depending on obviously what platform you're using there.
In other words, it doesn't give you lower results just because you're trying to watch it.
No, there may be.
It's going to be
some impact, but it's going to be 1% or less in that regard. That's tomorrow on Thursday, March 9th. Tomorrow, if you're listening to this as we record it, at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And again, if you sign up for that email subscribe list at pcpro.com/subscribe, we'll send you the notification. People that were already on that list got an email earlier today kind of telling them about the announcement. And also, I guess very important is we are going to give away a GeForce GTX 1080 Ti on the live stream as well. So you want to tune in for that. Even if you feel like you know everything there is to know about graphics hardware, don't be a dummy. New video cards are yummy. Did that work?
That was real close. You tried hard.
I didn't realize I was trying to rhyme until the very end, but we get what we can do.
It showed.
And Tom Peterson's fun to have on the show. So usually he says some dumb crap.
But that BO, I tell you, that guy showers once a week, whether he likes it or not.
Luckily for people who are only watching the live stream, we haven't integrated any smelling technology. I don't know. So let's get into the actual stuff that happened this week. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we're not going to talk about the Ryzen review, the 1800X review I posted. I'm still finishing my Ryzen 7 1700 and 1700X review itself. But I did post a short editorial today, kind of on a whim, where I started looking at some of the overclocking results I got with the Ryzen. I keep kind of trying to call it the R7 1700. And the R7 is the Radeon line.
Yep.
Ryzen 7 is the CPU line. Not confusing at all. But I did some overclocking testing on it, and I just thought it was so interesting that I wanted to push something out a little bit quicker. So I wrote this story on the Ryzen 7 1700. The subtitle being "The Real Winner?" because that's that's how we bring you into the story, right? I don't know. Is it the real winner?
Is it?
I need to know. I need to find out. So essentially, what I did here was I was testing it, and on the Asus Crosshair 6 Hero motherboard. There's a preset actually in here. You can see these here. In their overclocking presets, they have 4 options. They have a gamer's OC profile. I don't know what that does necessarily. A load the 141 megahertz base clock profile, load a 4 gigahertz OC profile, and a 3600 megahertz DRAM OC profile. And these are just kind of like Asus created defaults or automated specs where they go, hey, they've tested a ton of processors. Here's where they think if you want to get 4 gigahertz easily, just enable this. They change voltages and clocks and all the settings necessary to make it happen.
Yep.
Now, to be very clear, this is kind of like the lazy man's way out of doing things. Clearly and without a doubt, right? But I just saw it here and I thought, well, the Ryzen 7 1700 is interesting because of a couple things. One, it's the lowest price of the 3 parts they released. 2, it is the lowest TDP of the parts they released. The other 2 parts are 95 watts. This one is 65 watts. Other than that, like it's still 8 cores, 16 threads. It still has the same PCI Express configurations and interfaces and all that type of stuff.
And I think because of all of that is how they can get away with having just a generic, here's your one-click overclocking profile, because it's not like there's a big range of different hardware that they have to support for for this thing, right?
3 parts, right? And I think, Josh, you can add some input to this. If you were guessing, based on the GlobalFoundries process and what we know about the CPUs and how we seem to have hit like overclocking limits that are pretty much static across all 3 SKUs, there's not a lot of difference in these chips out of the door, individually, right? It's not how would I
It's
say
not like there's a different number of thermal sensors on
bins.
one versus another.
No, but what I mean is like they're all kind of come out the same. Either they're working or they're not. There's not like some big variance where, oh, well, this one bent down poorly, so we're going to make it a Ryzen 7 1700 instead of a 1800X.
And it won't overclock as well or something.
Yeah, right.
But that's not the case because they seem to be overclocking.
Do you think that's the case, Josh, that's something that would be...
I mean, there's going to be differences. There's going to be differences between dies and their overall, wattage and TDPs and how high they can clock. But AMD has done a ton in the actual design to offset some of these limitations, and especially in terms of power consumption and heat production, by really dramatically turning it on and off portions of the chip. They've got all those sensors throughout, pretty unique power regulation throughout.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the end, the limitation that they're hitting is the 14 nanometer process. I think it's just kind of at the max. As we've gone down from 45 to 32 to 28, Intel was able to get to 22. People who have owned Intel processors from like Sandy Bridge, which is a 32 nanometer process, then going down to 28, have always said, hey, our overclocking headroom has dropped down significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And even with this latest generation of stuff, people are getting 5 gigahertz on a second generation 14 nanometer process from Intel, who, even though they've had their issues, really is still leading the industry in manufacturing technology. I know there's that guy we've been talking to from the Motley Fool on Twitter.
Yeah. And
he's pretty down on Intel manufacturing, but I disagree with him in that Intel still has the gold standard in sub 20 nanometer technology. I mean, their 14 nanometer second generation process is really good. That they can get a 7700K, which is still a pretty decent sized chip because it's got a GPU inside there. They clock that to 4.2 to 4.5. People overclock that to 5 gigahertz. And we haven't seen a whole lot of 5 gigahertz since these 32 nanometer Sandy Bridge parts. And so I think that Intel has that going on. But GlobalFoundries and Samsung, They've been going with 14 nanometer for the last 2 years. They've been developing, trying to get going. And finally, they have a product at Global Foundries that AMD can rely on, get significantly better yields than possibly they've been expecting. But yeah, I think they're just hitting some hard limits in transistor switching performance and power consumption at certain speeds, because you can look at your power graphs.
I can.
Things are really nice and efficient at the 3.2 to 3.6.
Yeah.
Get up to 4 gigahertz, things start getting up there. But
They do.
when you start doing manually overclocking and get above that, it just skyrockets.
Yep.
And that really tells us that it may be more the manufacturing limitations of this process rather than the design of what AMD has done, because they can apply that power and clocking up and down stuff a lot. And if you had a process that could support higher speeds, it would be I'm trying to think of the exact word. Those things would work hand in hand to provide higher speeds. And so I think that we're hitting a hard wall on air and water cooling of, the 4.2 to 4.5 gigahertz on these chips. And to me, that just kind of screams, this is what their process technology can do. And I'm not sure we can expect a whole lot better.
So, yeah, and you kind of you told a lot of what the story in the article actually is. So I will say, first of all, like setting the 4 gigahertz thing did just kind of work out of the box. So, congrats to ASUS for that. And this is the cooler we're using. We're using the Noctua U12S cooler with the industrial fan on it, not the stock fan on it. So it does have a higher, like a 500 RPM higher maximum speed on it. But this is what we were using from the initial Ryzen review as well. So it was running at 4 gigahertz at a maximum. The highest voltage I saw was 1.482 volts, which is really high.
Yeah, it is.
Now, when we went to the AMD Tech Day and they talked about Ryzen, they did say something about, hey, 1.4, 1.45 volts is kind of like where we see things being safe and considerate. So if they're saying that, ASUS isn't going to set this, if they think they're going to fry components on a board.
Right.
And it does vary based on the load, because we saw it down as low as 1.417 volts in some cases.
Yep.
Now, it's interesting.
But man, does that power go up?
Yeah, the power draw goes way up. One thing that's interesting that I still haven't quite nailed down is like the temperature monitoring. 73C under a full load for an extended period of time is where this CPU kind of sat. Sebastian was talking about, hey, if you're using that industrial fan on that Noctua cooler, he believes that. It seems to make sense, which is good, because I wasn't sure I believed that was the case. Because when you clock those Kaby Lake processors up to 5.1 gigahertz, you need a 240 rad cooler to keep that under 80, 90 C.
Okay.
Right. So I'm a little bit surprised it would be this low. Also kind of surprising is that the idle temperatures that all of the software I've used, whether it be in the UEFI, the BIOS itself, or through AIDA64, are all reporting fairly high idle temperatures of like 40, 45 C. So in my mind, there's still a question mark on how valid any of this data actually is.
Yeah, because the idle power draw is really low.
The idle power draw is really low.
So the temperature
but the
should
temp
not be
seems
sitting
high.
Yeah.
And then the load power draw OC is really high,
Yeah.
but the temp seems really low.
Yeah.
So again,
Something fishy.
I mean, they could just be now realize you're doing CPU reported temperatures, right?
correct.
So it's probably just down to a matter of where their thermocouple is versus where Intel puts theirs.
If I were to
and-
guess, it's not on the location, it's more on the algorithm of the output.
Oh,
Okay. What the processor's not sending out, I'm at 73 degrees. It's sending out some number, some data point that needs to be translated
right. So
by
maybe
the software, by the BIOS.
maybe the translation is not.
That's
correct
just a
at
guess
this
at this
point.
point. Still
Yeah.
a guess. So I did some performance testing. If you look at this graph here, so this is Cinebench R15, the single-threaded version. The green line here is the R7 1700 overclocked, so you can see it matches the perf of the 1800X, but it's still behind all of the Kaby Lake, Skylake parts in single-threaded. But it does boost it from 141 to 160. That's a sizable increase in perf, and it does actually take it above the 6950, 6900, 6800K processors, the Broadwell and single-threaded. But in multi-threaded, it's even more impressive, right? Because the 1800X at stock settings, the highest end Ryzen at stock settings, is only running at 3.7 with all cores loaded. And it's running this part, overclocked is at 4 gigahertz.
Yeah.
So it exceeds the 1800X scores, and it actually beats everything else except the 10 core part from Intel down there, and it's really close to doing so. Handbrake, you can see this is a lower is better. It's actually the fastest performer of any part in this test.
Cool.
In Audacity, here's a single-threaded workload where lower scores are better, and it is the best Ryzen part, but it is the worst. It is worse than all of the Intel scores on there. So again, single-threaded performance, it's better when it's overclocked to 4 gigahertz, but it's not enough of an overclock on a single thread to really make up for some of these deltas we're seeing. And then in gaming, because obviously 1080p gaming is the big discussion point that people have had over the last week. You can see these green lines here represent the overclocked version. And it's, it jumps from 59 frames per second to 66 in Civ 6. And it does make it the fastest of the Ryzen parts. But again, behind pretty much everything else, like the 7700K in that regard. If you look at Rise of the Tomb Raider, it increases quite a bit. It goes from 93 to 105 with the overclock.
But it's still
slow compared to the Intel parts, and the same thing here with Hitman in terms of the performance differences you get. And then we were talking about power consumption, and here it is in graph form. So here's where it's interesting. The 1700 stock system power draw, 108 watts. Overclocked system power draw, 214 watts. That's 106 watts difference. That's literally the processor is drawing 106 watts more power. Considering it's a 65 watt TDP part, that's period, we're probably drawing 165 watts through it, just guessing.
And you're not popping anything.
Right? And everything's working.
Everything's
fine.
working.
It's kind of like going from the 8350 to the 9590.
Yeah.
That was a huge spike.
FX.
Yeah.
That was monstrous power.
And note the idles are great. Even for the overclocked, like
that's and
you would
so
think that sometimes when you do overclocks on a system, you end up just having the voltage high all the time, and it ends up giving you like excessive power draw even at idle.
There's all kinds of interesting questions to have about this because like we've learned that AMD has this trick where
they can shut down parts of their...
it misreports on purpose the speed to the operating system sometimes so that it can control the clock speeds and power in the background, right?
So it can pull it back further than...
Did they steal that from BMW?
So they're trying to pull what Intel does with speed shift.
No, VW.
Yeah.
They're trying to do what Intel does with speed shift, kind of, but Intel was able to build it into the operating system so that the operating system willingly handed over control to the processor.
Yep.
AMD hasn't integrated that yet, if they plan to.
Right.
So they're kind of like running around it and trying to figure out a way to do it. So I think that's how you get to like the low power draw, even at a 4 gigahertz, what is being reported as a 4 gigahertz static clock speed.
Yeah. I mean, even if they do fix that.
Let me posit.
What?
Go ahead, Alan.
Even if they do fix that in the future, the only thing you're really going to get out of it is just if you look at the CPU speed in Task Manager or whatever, it'll just show at a more accurate speed that it's actually going, right?
Correct. Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
Let me posit this. Overclocking is going to become less and less important over the years because the CPU guys have got tighter and tighter control over all areas of the CPU. I mean, they're going to maximize that power and minimize the power and maximize clock speed as much as possible with the transistor budget. And so, like we've seen already, overclocking since 45 nanometers on down has become less and less productive.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, or?
I mean, so some of that is like, I know like Intel's design margin for like their CPUs and their stuff, like they're assuming it's the worst case full of dust, fan is caked full of junk, right? So like in the future, it could get a lot more smart as far as like regulating itself and compensating for the temperature going up or down. Mm-hmm. So in the end, you would get this ideal scenario where it would eventually hit a point like where the better cooling you put on it, the faster it goes.
That's what they claimed with XFR.
Right.
But it's not really true.
But like that's where it could go as all of this stuff gets better and better about like riding the margin.
Mm-hmm.
right? As opposed to just having a dumb
The
margin.
ragged edge, if you will.
Yeah, as opposed to the margin just having to be the same margin for like to compensate for really bad cooling, right?
This is exactly what NVIDIA's GPU boost does.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a huge variance from part to part, but there is variance part to part and cooling to cooling, right? And if you're in a well-ventilated case, your average clock speeds are higher. I think a lot of CPU companies are avoiding that currently still. They don't want to get into that question mark of why does one part perform better than another,
Right.
you know, and businesses that are buying these parts are going to be concerned about that,
Well,
which is a valid argument.
You would
to
say
have.
just Intel is doing that now because AMD is clearly going more along the GPU route, right?
well,
With XFR.
They,
Somewhat.
they said they were going to, but they didn't. It behaves
Oh.
exactly like Intel's Turbo does. Like there's the XFR stuff, as far as I'm concerned, is kind of just
Okay.
smoke and mirrors, right? The goal was there, and we have a story on it that Tim wrote as well. The goal is there, and they have the flex. Maybe in the next generation or in another revision, they can implement things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But at the outset, it's a little odd. I would also say that for this particular case, AMD kind of had to take away any headroom that their processors had in order to get to a performance level where they were competitive with Intel on single threaded,
Oh.
even remotely close.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of that is probably why we're seeing these like, hey, the Ryzen 1800X has a max turbo of 4 gigahertz, and a lot of people can't even overclock past 4 gigahertz.
Sure.
And a lot of that is
They're just
AMD,
they're pushing
AMD
it
could
harder.
have said like, hey, we're going to release a 3.2 to 3.6 part, like I think was the original plan. And now we have a 400 megahertz overclock. That's way more interesting and exciting to talk about
Right.
than a 0 megahertz overclock, even though it's technically an overclock because all cores are running instead of one. But Intel has the 7700K that has a max turbo of 4.5, but you can push it to 5.0 pretty easily.
The whole thing
If
to
they
5.0.
wanted to, they could have released like a 4.5 to 5.0 part and had no headroom, right?
I don't see Intel ever doing that.
You never know. If there's pressure, you could.
I guess.
But yeah, in the end,
But I'm seriously stunned that AMD got to 3.6 to 4.0.
I
mean,
think you're not
it's
the only one.
a brand new
Yeah.
design,
yeah, it is very
It's
impressive for what it
essentially
is, right? Like
a
it's
brand new process technology that they're running on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, NVIDIA, when they did that with the GTX 480, how well did that go?
Not great.
Yeah.
Now,
Not great.
now
Not great.
AMD would even kind of would argue is like, hey, this is not our first part on their 14 nanometer process. Like it's the first Zen architecture
or
on it,
CPU, right?
but
like-
they've released GPUs on it.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've had some practice.
and do any of the APUs, any of their like their
Not yet.
in
No, I don't think they did a 14
the
nanometer.
semi-custom stuff's not on there either?
I mean,
No.
if
No,
there was,
it's all
if there was, okay, it's a
semi-custom
little
is
more
28
practice. Right?
nanometer stuff.
Okay. So, but in the end, like it's the point of the story was, hey, if you're going to buy a Zen processor, if you want to buy a Ryzen processor, like save $170,
Mhm.
get the R7 1700, overclock it to 3.8 if you don't want the power to be that high, or 3.9, or push it all the way to 4, or maybe you can get 4.1 out of it. Save $170 because it seems
And buy
like
yourself a nice NVMe drive.
yeah, like it seems like
Right.
all
Yeah.
the parts are behaving identically.
Yep.
And there's no feature difference between them, so just kind of go for it. I don't
Yeah.
know. It doesn't change like the gaming concerns, but it does make it a more cost-effective, potential solution, I guess. That
I
way.
mean,
but
I guess it helps the gaming a little bit, but
I mean, it does, but it doesn't fundamentally change anything.
I'm still
About
surprised
what
that
they're
they are
doing.
as close as they are to Intel, just generally. The little odd gaming issues aside, like that's
It's not. I would.
Given-
It's not a little gaming issue,
well,
probably.
okay. Yeah.
right?
It's a
We're
gaming
not
issue,
sure yet. We're
but,
still
like-
figuring things out, but it has the potential to be more important than a lot of
Right.
people want to say.
But still, even
But-
compared to AMD's previous CPU,
oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's a huge
They
jump.
still did it. Yeah, no, they did a fantastic job. It's
Yeah.
way better than it was. Absolutely. A couple other quick items. Logitech G533 wireless 7.1 surround gaming headset review. This is Sebastian. Obviously, Sebastian posted this up. You can tell just from the photos, really, when it's a Sebastian article. Look, he's
Yeah.
even got one of those
It's like that's
like
floating.
the mannequin heads. Do you see
even-
see like the little plastic thing there?
It's
It's
just-
nice. It's he does it right. So this is their slightly more budget wireless gaming headset. It's got less bells and whistles. It doesn't have all the RGB flashing lights and capabilities and that stuff. This is a $149 headset, so you're looking at $50 less, 25% less than the G933, which was the previous kind of their flagship wireless headset. It's a little bit lighter, half of an ounce lighter, that type of things. But it is using the Pro G headphone driver. It seems to have pretty good specifications. And the microphone is a little bit different this time. I don't think it has, no, it still does have the extension and kind of the flex. It doesn't fold in as discreetly as the previous design, but it does do pretty well. Sebastian noted here that it had, the sound quality was actually really, really good because it was using the same drivers as the Artemis Spectrums, which are the G633 and 933 units. So that's a good thing. Excellent wireless range, long battery life, solid build quality, with a no frills design, no RGB, which I know will disappoint Alan tremendously.
I'm kind of like a purist when it comes to like just headphones,
Yeah.
just like earbuds or and a headset, right? I don't need
No,
flashy
you're not.
color.
You like RGB. Admit it.
No.
You're an
Hooked on
RGB
it.
prostitute.
I'm still on
Ow.
that AKG like radio Howard Cosell headset at the house.
Yeah. So I like some of the things they've done with these headset microphones. Like they have flexible ends on them. They mute when you flip them up. None of these things are exceptionally new necessarily.
Yeah, that feature's been in a lot of their
volume
things, right?
rocker head on the headset itself as opposed to inline on the cable. I actually prefer it that way. He did say Sebastian doesn't think they're pretty comfortable to wear as well. And like I said, sound quality is good, and that's really the primary thing. And audio quality also being good. And the Logitech gaming software, even though they have continued to add new features and new products into it, continues to be a really good piece of software, like almost surprisingly so. When you get companies that are this size putting in this quantity of things into software, they tend to turn bad. And this doesn't seem to be the case. So Sebastian gave him a gold award between excellent sound, outstanding wireless range, long battery life, superior construction. The G533 are an easy recommendation for PC users looking for a wireless gaming headset. So apparently the only problem is that the G933 Artemis Spectrum is like currently selling for $135, as at least it was at the time of publication as a sale price. I'm going to click this and see where we're at now. $135 still. So that puts it less than the 533, which is interesting. I would probably get the 933s. Well, it depends on if you want something a little bit more understated. I mean, these clearly have a very different look and style than the G533.
Yep.
So, keep that in mind as you shop around, I guess. What else we have? Lee posted a review of Rio Toro. Who knows Rio Toro? Yeah.
I've heard of them, but not very often.
So Rio Toro is a new company that Sebastian did a case review for them already and got pretty good results. And Lee is doing a power supply review, and it's pretty good. It's okay. It's their first run at things. This is the 850 watt unit. The brand is the Rio Toro Enigma. So I don't know if there's any decoding you have to do to really get inside the power supply. I don't think so. 850, 750, 650 models, 80 plus gold, semi-modular, which is probably one of the comments on the story kind of hit on that a little bit, that it was a little disappointing to see a semi-modular power supply. Although again,
but as we keep explaining, that also adds about 10 foot to the cable.
wait, what?
The
Yeah, it's
electrical
about 3
connection from
meters of
plugging it in
resistance.
adds
Oh.
significantly more resistance. It's like adding almost.
It's
10 feet of
like
cable
adding
to that.
10 feet of cable. It's okay. I was
So-
like, wait a minute, really?
Okay.
It's amazing.
You know, if
Ed
you're really that
Zachary.
obsessed, you
and
can do
honestly,
it, but it doesn't make sense electronically.
It does make cable routing more difficult from time to time, but the ATX connector, the PCIe connector, the 8-pin CPU connector, you're always going to need those. They don't need to be removable. Though I do
Exactly.
see the complaint that maybe cable routing is a little bit less ideal because of it. So I'm not going to step through everything here. He'll talk about who the OEM is and and what the efficiencies are and the power capabilities of it.
The Corsair CS850M.
That's what it's based on? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. That's interesting based on who I know is working at the company that it's based on a Corsair power supply. Not surprising. $119 is going to be the MSRP. Not too bad for the 850 watt model. Very good voltage reg.
It's on sale for $109.
There you go. Good efficiency. 140 mil fan is very quiet. Weaknesses is that Lee thinks the introductory price seems high compared to the competition. But as Josh mentioned, it's already on sale pricing. A few additional cables and connectors would be nice at this power level. Agreed. And the 85C primary caps and sleeve bearing fans were a drawback as well. Still a silver award from Lee on this one. So if you're looking for another power supply, hey, how about another option for you?
There are plenty
I
of
like
power
power
supply options.
supplies.
Everybody has to have one. Well, I mean,
I need more.
every computer has to have one.
At least, maybe 2.
Sometimes. All right, everybody, let's take a quick moment here to thank today's podcast sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Casper. Casper, an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the cost. They are revolutionizing the mattress industry by cutting the cost of dealing with resellers and showrooms and passing the savings on to the consumers. This is what the internet has enabled for us. Mattresses through the mail. Everything through the mail. I get my dog food in the mail.
I shipped my mattress.
You're damn
get-
straight I'm going to get my
Listen,
mattress through the mail.
You lately get your ice cream in
Ship
the
my
mail.
pants.
I do, in fact, get ice cream through the mail. They don't. Yeah, not. Yeah.
What?
Well, it's now you reminded me that there's a half of a pint in the freezer.
Yeah.
Now I want it.
That you got in the mail?
Speaking of mattresses in the mail, Casper and mattresses are obsessively engineered at a very fair price. They are made of supportive memory foams for a sleep surface with just the right sink and just the right bounce. Plus, its breathable design sleeps cool to help you regulate your temperature throughout the night. I have a Casper mattress. We got one in. It's been a while now. We've been using it for a while. It is in those magical boxes where it's all kind of compressed and put together, and you open it up. Well, take it to the room you're going to use it in, and then you open it up and it expands, and it's like magic. In that way, it is very dense and heavy, but compressible in that form. You can buy it easily online. Completely risk-free. You can try sleeping on a Casper mattress, and this is really the important part here. Is they get the idea that mattress buying sucks, and so in order to make it better, you need to actually use the mattress in your own environment with your own sleeping patterns and see if it makes an impact for you. That's why they give you a 100-day period for returns, right? So you get to use it for 100 days, 100 nights. So you don't have to go through that lying down on a mattress in a showroom for 30 seconds before purchasing process that you hate to go through. And did you know, this is always in the copy here, statistically speaking, lying on a bed in a showroom has no correlation to whether or not it's the right bed for you. So it's worth noting that. Casper mattresses are made in the USA, free shipping and returns to the US and Canada, and you can save an additional $50 toward a mattress purchase by going to casper.com/PCPer and enter the promo code PCPer. That's casper.com/PCPer, promo code PCPer. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you, Casper, for your support of the PC Perspective podcast. There you go. All right, let's get into some more news. The news of this episode is going to be very AMD heavy again. Like I said, a lot of disgruntledness, not disgruntledness, a lot of controversy and discussion around the Ryzen parts. We talked about overclocking earlier. The biggest kerfuffle that occurred is the 1080p gaming results on Ryzen. And basically, I would summarize it as the gaming results on Ryzen without, putting 1080p at the middle of it. In our test here, you can see one of them, Hitman and DirectX 12 at 1080p Ultra. You can see that the 1800X performs significantly lower than the 7700K and well below all of the Broadwell E processors as well. And this was not something that just we saw in one game. We saw it in multiple games, and lots of other reviewers saw the same thing. Now, at first, there was criticism that, why are you testing games at 1080p? We're not going to get into that debate, except to say that if you look at the Steam hardware survey, 43% of the people in that survey have a 1080p as their primary display monitor, right? Primary display resolution, sorry. Now, do people who buy $500 CPUs and buy higher-end GPUs skew towards higher resolutions? Yes, absolutely they would. But it's not going to be like 40% 25 by 14 or 4K, right? I think if you look at the main Steam results, I think it was like what,
It was less than 1%.
Or 4K. 0.67% was 4K.
Yeah. And then it was like less than 2% were 1440p. Yeah.
So that's why 1080p is still important, and I think it remains important, especially 1080p, 240 hertz monitors. Those types of things are very important. AMD's CVP, which is Corporate Vice President of Marketing, sent me a note that basically they admit to the they're not admitting to anything. These are true results. They acknowledge the results at 1080p, and that this is not ideal for them. They would like it to be better. They talk about working with developers to kind of figure out ways to optimize these games for Ryzen CPUs. The claim being that games for the last decade have essentially been run on Intel processors, developed on Intel processors, compiled on Intel processors. All the debugging and perf work was done on Intel processors. And so just kind of de facto out of the gate, the result is a different architecture is going to behave differently, and in some cases behave poorly in some of these applications. And there's truth to that. That makes sense, right? How different that could be, I'm not really sure. They have statements in here from Oxide Games, who talked about, Oxide Games is the developer of the Nitrous engine, which is behind the Ashes of the Singularity game. They love cores, they love threads. So they talk about an 8-core, 16-thread Ryzen 7 CPU. They're still working on those optimizations. That's not in the game yet, but they think that the benefit of 8 cores is going to substantially improve their gaming performance and capability. There's also, the argument that if you're running at a higher resolution, those deficits are reduced or removed completely, right? Which may or may not be true, depending on your GPU, right? If you have a brand new GeForce GTX 1080 Ti, for example, you're still going to have a pretty heavy CPU bottleneck, right? Like the GPU, if you have the fastest GPU you could possibly buy, then you're putting the emphasis on the CPU in many instances, even at 25 by 14. So, their response is expected, and I would actually say better and more metered and controlled than I expected it to be. It would have been very easy for AMD to come out and just kind of say, this is a demonstration of Intel's stranglehold on the market and why we need to sell more processors so that developers have them and people see them and they target that.
Well, they're doing the big push with the developer seeding of.
They're going to send systems to people, and that's a benefit they have on the GPU side is they know it has to be like these developers aren't going to go out and buy these parts themselves to do this.
Right.
For the most part, some will. But
they're not that expensive.
You need to get in their face with the whole system and say, look, here, I built this for you. Please use it, right? And that's what the GPU guys are used to doing on the GPU side of AMD. And so
having talked to developers, they're incredibly cheap. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. And you're working on corporate budgets. And even though you're working on a game developer, they don't want to spend a bunch of money on IT if they don't have to. Right? They're not going to upgrade your workstations just because.
Codemasters guy.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago, it's like, have you tested this on any Win 10 machines? And we've actually got one machine that's running Win 10, and we're not really doing much with that now. We're still doing Win 7. And it's like, wow.
You should probably look into that.
Yeah. It's going to be free.
So, a couple of questions that stem from this. What could it be architecturally that is limiting performance in this specific use case more so than what we see in single-threaded performance in other benchmarks, right? Like we've seen the gap in Cinebench and it's like 8% or something like that. And it goes up to as much as, 15% in some places. But in games, it's worse than that, leading us to believe that there's other things at the mix. There are people that talk about SMT being one of the culprits. There are people talking about memory speed being one of the culprits. What's the other stuff? A
We had a
core
few theories
parking
You should
before the
schedule
podcast.
someone from AMD to come in and talk about it.
Yeah,
I would
that be
absolutely love to
good.
have it, but they wouldn't. There's no way they'd do that. Sorry, there's no way they'd do that before they had an answer, right? And even if they had an answer and they'd solved it, I don't know how open they would be about what the actual fix would be. Personally, I don't believe that there are people that are like, oh, give them a couple of months and they'll put in the right patches to Microsoft for Windows 10 and they'll get the right BIOS fixes to Asus and MSI and Gigabyte, and poof, everything will be fine. And I do not believe that's the case. I think you can make improvements. I don't think disabling multi-threading should be one of the options. There's no reason you should have to give up multi-threaded performance so you could not game at poor resolution or poor frame rates.
Yeah.
But if you disable SMT, if you disable core parking and increase your memory speed, maybe you get 7% back. That's a good start, but it's not 30%, which is some of the differences we're seeing.
It still doesn't
in
explain
these games
what's going on, And there's been a lot of talk about the Windows scheduler and not doing the things I went back and looked at our storage test results when I was doing that storage test, and my logging shows the CPU use per core, right? And it sure looked like Windows was staggering its load across, every other thread to start with before it had no choice but to load more things.
Should I go into what I think, or do you want to save that for later?
I don't know.
You have a theory?
You go for it, I guess.
It's limitations in the Infinity Fabric.
Oh.
22
So
megabits.
you've got two CCXs, two cores that individually are very fast, but then you've got them working on a lot of common threads and a lot of data coming through.
Yeah.
And then you're also feeding a GPU through that same Infinity Fabric that's running at DDR4 speeds. So if you got DDR4 2400, then it's actually running at 1200 megahertz.
Okay.
And when we don't have all the information about what Infinity Fabric does, but it seems like it's 32 bytes per clock. And when you start looking at how much bandwidth that is, it's about 32 gigabytes per. Well, I don't know. I think it's less, but
I think it was 28 was what I read.
You've got that much contention in between the CCXs talking to each other. You've got individual cores talking to each other, trying to look into L2 cache, see what's been evicted, see what's been changed. When you have all that, and plus that handles memory accesses as well. So you've got DDR4 running at 2400, which is what, 12 gigabytes per second? No, it's more than that. It's like a theoretical
22,
maximum of what, 28?
We're talking about DDR4 speeds?
DDR4 speeds, yeah.
28
Right.
gigs.
Yeah,
28.
yeah. And so when you start looking at all that, Fabric is getting stressed, and I think that you'll probably have some information further in the next couple of weeks that will explore these things with memory speeds. But until we know more about what Infinity Fabric does, how it is set up, and what the limitations are, my guess is that may just be pushed way past its limit, and we're seeing some negative results in terms of frame rates and stuff that you're feeding a lot of data to the GPU over a by 16 connection.
So my question would be, would we expect the same deficits to occur on GPU compute workloads? So something that's like OpenCL based, right?
It depends on where the workload is stored. If it's on the GPU in the local memory there, it's not going to have an effect. But if it's a massive data set that exists not only in memory but in I/O, then you're going to see the bottleneck there.
So you're assuming that the gaming data sets are not just stored on an 8 gigabyte GPU then?
Correct. I mean, okay, look at it in game. You've got texture memory, you've got polygon stuff, you've got all of that going on, and you've got stuff streaming to the GPU all the time, new information, new data. and changes to what is on the local memory there. And so you're not just talking about, well, you've only got, 6 gigs of texture memory. Why isn't that just on there? And you've got plenty of bandwidth in between the PCI and the local memory bus to do all this. Well, workloads don't really work that way. It's not as cut and dried. And as games become more and more complex, both visually and in terms of physics, the data load is going to change across what buses that we have in effect. So depending on how games are coded, you've got stuff that's going to be in main memory that will be streamed to the GPU memory and vice versa, because people like more and interesting, complex things in the games that they play, and that requires a lot of programming that way.
If it's the intermodule fabric that turns out to be an issue, that will be a problem for things like Naples that are 32 core processors that are talking about having, 10 GPUs connected for compute workloads and 8 channels of memory, or no. Well, 8 channels of memory instead of 2.
Yeah, because arguably they would be shifting more to the GPU to do the workload. The GPU would be the bottleneck itself.
But it's the fabric that you've got to get it across.
Okay,
well, sure.
Okay, but we've got to differentiate here. In Naples, they've got an Infinity Fabric that's running on the CPU, but also in between the different CPUs. So you're going to have some contention there, but you're also multiplying the overall interchip bandwidth with all of these. I mean, there's 4 dies per Naples chip. So it's 8 cores, 16 threads, 32 cores, 64 threads on each Naples chip.
Right.
Yeah. And so you've got a larger Infinity Fabric overall in the chip.
Sure.
That has the multiple modules, and that's why you've got But the chip-to-chip communication is going to be slower. Dual channel memory modules.
Is it possible that maybe it's not so much that it's slower, but maybe that it's just not that nimble?
You
see what I mean?
It seems like it's workload dependent.
So here's a data point that I have, actually. I went back and looked, and I didn't focus on it that much during the Ryzen review, the initial Ryzen review where I did that storage test, but the single-threaded IOPS off of an NVMe SSD, because you needed an NVMe to at least go this high to see where there was a difference. My thread, provided that the thread itself is the limit, like running at 3.5 gigahertz, which is what I did for that testing, it capped out at around 200,000 IOPS. It had to hit a pretty high Q to do that, but like on Intel, it capped out at around 200,000. On AMD, it was like 110,000. It was like almost half the IOPS in the same exact same exact workload, same exact everything else, right? It was literally the same piece of software running on.
Single thread, a single
worker just doing like as many IOPS as it possibly can at a high Q depth. I didn't make a big deal about it during the review because it was users are not running at Q depth 16 and 32 ever, pretty much, right? But it is something to note that the performance did just kind of level off for just one worker thread, hitting a device. So, and that's something where all it was doing was basically, issuing an IO to the SSD and then just waiting on the kernel to get back to basically interrupt the CPU to tell it, hey, your IO is done. So maybe it has something to do with interrupts combined with Infinity Fabric. Who knows, right? But it was a pretty significant difference, right? At the same clock speeds where everything else looked pretty much the same in all other situations, all of a sudden you had this one weird bottleneck scenario where it was almost half the performance.
Interesting. We like data. We like data points.
Yeah.
I hate it. I actually hate all data. Everything should be experience-based. Everything's a great processor. Everything's great.
Is this your new site that you're starting up?
Yeah, it's my new
experience-based.
It's my new YouTube channel.
If you stick at 60 hertz for everything, you're going to be happy with
30
this processor.
Get a 4K 30 TV, you're fine. But run it at 1080p 30.
Put a little dab of heat paste over here.
Yeah.
And just make a happy little tree. Look at the processor. It runs lovely.
All right, we got to get
great
through some more damn stories. Let's do this. Ryzen. Tim wrote a really good article, editorial, whatever, summation on AMD XFR. This is something that I had misunderstood initially as well. that XFR as a technology was actually enabled on all Ryzen CPUs, but the X SKUs, the 1700X and the 1800X, apparently have a wider range. They get that extra 100 megahertz boost. Josh, you anything that stands out from this other than kind of getting us back in line with what it actually did?
No. Sorry. No, I mean you're going to have variability in between dies. So the dies that are in the middle of the wafer that have the best optics that are being focused on them in lithography, you're going to have better chips, and that's just the way it works. And so when you have these X chips, they are going to show an improvement in TDPs and maximum clock speeds and how high they can go without kind of breaking the bank in terms of thermal envelopes. So these, the variances seem to be smaller than they were in previous generations, but they're still going to be there.
Yeah.
And so 1800X is still going to be a better part overall than the 1700 overclocked. And you can see that in power consumption and overall performance.
Hold on. I would say it could be a better chip overall, but the likelihood, basically it comes down to, are they just like shipping as many chips as they possibly can, and actually the decisions are made more based on what they think the sell-through is going to be? They might have tons of chips that could be 1800Xs that they sell as 1700s or 1700Xs because they're like, well, we need to make these parts too. Right? Even though they would rather sell it at the higher price, then they know they're not going to sell that many $500 parts, but they might sell a ton of $329 parts. And so that's why like only having 3 processors to like bin into, in my mind, levels the playing field quite a bit between the options that are out there.
Yeah, that is a pretty small sample size.
Yes.
And we won't know more until more people have these and are able to publish their results, not just guys like Hard OCP and Tech Report and those guys, but also people on forums that are very active. Put out some really, really good stuff because, they don't write for somebody, but they have a good scientific mind and a process that they can show these things. Until we get a lot more of those samples, we won't really know. And not only that, but to throw more wrenches into the gears, we're going to see better improvements by AMD. If we look back 8 months ago where they're at with Ryzen and what they can achieve in speeds and what they did now, that's pretty significant. And we're going to see incremental improvements, not just from the foundry side, but small changes in metal layers and whatnot that AMD can do relatively quickly to help these things out. So it's, as time goes on, we're going to see probably small improvements, and then we got to measure that out and figure out where the bottlenecks are. And it's all chaos theory because there's millions and millions of samples out there.
Indeed.
And billions of transistors.
Exactly.
Before we get to our next story, I do want to point out here, we have some new Patreon contributions. Jason Malvuccio added their... Okay, we'll say either way. Edited their pledge from $3 to $4. How do you say that? Vuccio? Malvuccio?
Malvuccio.
Yeah, it sounds Italian. There you go.
That's better.
My erection has lasted longer than 4 hours, and now I'm conflicted. Just edited their pledge as well.
Just go outside. Go outside to a place that is highly populated and just go around high-fiving people. Hey! They won't know what for, but you'll know.
Unless they
and
look
you'll be
down,
happy.
they might. Yeah.
High five.
Between 3 and 5, just edited their pledge to $4. Clever there. And Filippo Dinolfo is a new pledge at $3.99. So thank you, Filippo, for that. And then I got an email from somebody at Cyber Media Communications, which we don't really need to know about that. All right, so let's run through the rest of these news stories a little bit quicker, guys. BioStar showed a Mini ITX AM4 motherboard. But interestingly, it's based on the X370 chipset, as opposed to what I thought was going to be the case, which is where Mini ITX motherboards were just going to use the processor's SoC and storage capabilities instead.
Yeah.
I don't know. Jeremy, anything on this stand out as interesting to you? other than the confusion on the chipset part?
Not really. I mean, it's getting a little frustrating that there's been a lot of miscommunication about the chipsets and features and that. But one of the things that's nice to see is, hey, Mini ITX systems hitting very, very soon. Because I think a lot of people are going to sort of look towards AMD's new things as generally overall powerful enough for what you need it to do.
Yeah.
Small and able to be cooled in a very reasonable manner.
Mm-hmm,
And a tiny little system, going to make a great PVR, going to make a great home theater system. So focusing, I honestly, I think focusing on tiny little motherboards for the Ryzen makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at the specs here. X37.
Okay,
I've got
got
a
a
question.
PCI
Why would they
16.
use an X370 with that loadout that they have?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like maybe there's
It
more
looks like
USB
a
ports.
B250 or B350.
There is a B350, but there's supposed to be the X300, which is like an almost nothing chipset that depends on the SATA
Yeah,
and
essentially
storage.
it's a physical layer chip that
Yeah.
allows the
Yeah.
CPU SoC to work.
I mean, maybe it's just cheap enough where they could just hook it up and just not use all the pins and just say fine.
I don't know,
Like,
but if you look at the board design, like that chipset's right in the middle.
Yeah.
It takes up space
sure,
that you wouldn't have to take up otherwise. I
agree.
just don't get it.
I agree,
Not
but
fair.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't get it. And it looks like it's got, what, 4 SATA ports on it? Like, it's not exceeding what the other product can
No.
do. I don't know.
We've got a single M.2 as well. So, I mean,
True.
it's an interesting design. We got to get our hands on it and see how it goes.
We need to see more of these types of form factors in the AM. We want to see all of the options that exist for Intel to exist on the AMD. Competition will drive us forward on that. We'd already talked about this a little bit, but real quick, Tim did another really good kind of summation story on Naples, which is the the Zen-based server platform due out in Q2. That is 32 cores, 64 threads, 8 memory channels, a theoretical maximum of 2 terabytes of DDR4 memory, although I don't think the modules exist yet
No,
to get
they
us
do
to
not.
that capacity.
Across 8 channels?
8 channels, but
That's potentially 16 slots.
yeah, to get to 2 terabytes.
It's making it a lot easier.
Let's see, using the 16 gigabyte DIMMs available today, it supports up to 256 gigabytes of DDR4 per socket. So we'd have to have 4x of that. So we'd have to have 128 gig. No, wait, is that right? 32,
16,
64.
32, 64 gig.
64 gig DIMMs
Yeah.
before we can
Yeah.
max it out.
Yeah.
And they have
Um,
existed in the past, just not in this generation of DDR.
Yeah. So AMD talks a lot
The
about
amount
the
of
balanced.
I/O
Yeah, go ahead.
on this chip. Sorry, the amount
Mhm.
of I/O on each individual chip is pretty impressive.
128
in terms of
lanes
memory
of PCIe.
bandwidth. What?
128 lanes of PCIe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Per
we're not
chip.
even talking about the Infinity Fabric in between the chips. It's like Hypertransport Plus
Well,
is what they're
you're-
kind of talking
You're
about.
talking about Infinity Fabric would go between the chips on the processor.
Exactly.
Okay,
It is not
and the
only
sockets.
in
Yeah.
it's not only in the die with
Yes.
CCXs. It's in between the chips. So this is what they got from SeaMicro. And
Yeah,
they've
so the 128
enhanced it.
is the external communication. If you're in a multi-socket system, you're using 64 lanes to talk to the other processor.
No, it's supposedly Infinity Fabric,
Yeah, it's
and that's
separate.
different than
It's not.
PCIe.
No, it's
That's
using.
what they were saying.
I'm almost positive you're using PCIe lanes to talk like socket to socket.
But then
Okay,
that doesn't-
well, that
that
could
would-
be the case.
But
We
then that
need
wouldn't
more
leave any to
information.
talk to all the slots on the board.
You have 128 lanes total from the processor.
And you just
If
take
it's a
64
single
from each one.
socket system, you have access to 128 lanes. If it's a 2-socket system, 64 from each communicate with each other, and then
Okay.
you get 64 each for the rest of the system. I'm almost positive that's the case.
That's still a lot for the rest of the system.
Oh, sure.
It
And
is, but
64
then
lanes
again,
of PCIe for CPU to CPU communication seems like a hefty amount as well.
But the other idea is that that's also how you'll be able to stack these if they do modular Naples. So if you've got a bunch of them talking, they
Mhm.
should each be talking over Infinity Fabric, because that's what SeaMicro originally sort of did this for.
I still can't make myself not think Infinity Fabric is BS. I can't do it.
I-
The name
I
is
gotta
so
see Naples.
awful.
Well,
You got to
We
see
need
Naples
more
before you
information
can really say
because
one way or the other.
it's not sketchy, but it's limited.
Well, and it's when we went to like the tech day where they talked about Vega, they talked about Infinity Fabric there, meshing some of the parts of Vega GPU together. They talked about and they talked about like Infinity Fabric on this part over here, and then this part, and then actually we kind of started developing it with like Bobcat and those APUs, and it all sounded so different.
Yeah.
And I was like, it sounds to me like you just have these communication protocols on these different platforms, and maybe one day you think you want to have them all coalesce into one thing, but right now you're just going to be very vague about them and call them all Infinity Fabric.
Well, here's the
That's
problem.
what I feel
Probably
like.
correct.
PCIe does not, as far as I know, support coherency. And that is absolutely crucial for inter CPU connections.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't
you-
disagree, but now
I mean, you could,
Everything's confusing because we don't have enough information about Infinity Fabric.
yeah.
Yeah, so the story on Semi-Accurate, which, despite the name, I know Charlie. They do call it Infinity Fabric, but as you can see, each socket is connected to the next via 64 PCIe 3 lanes. The Infinity Fabric tag is important too. That is the protocol AMD chips now speak, basically Hypertransport Plus.
Gosh, it's almost like I said Hypertransport Plus.
Yeah.
earlier.
But he's
But
saying that
they're just
Infinity
passing
Fabric.
they're just passing it via PCIe.
They're using Infinity Fabric over PCIe.
I mean, if
so
you-
either they
that could work.
fundamentally change whatever you're talking about, the coherency capabilities of it.
So if
It's all
you
packets.
modify,
it's all how they put together the packets.
right. If you get rid of like the retransmit thing and you just make it a dumb pipe,
You can do anything with it.
and yeah.
Yeah.
And they could probably not have to they could probably not have to worry so much about the
You can literally do anything with
they
it.
wouldn't have to worry so much about the error
Anything.
correction because it's going to be two CPUs very close to each other. You're not worried about like how long the lanes are going
Yeah.
if they're going to other devices on them. Like
Sure.
you're just going just a couple of inches to another CPU, right? So you can get away with stripping away some of the other
Yeah.
PCIe protocol ish kind of stuff, and just make it
Sure.
It is both a particle and a wave.
sure.
So they're using 64 of the 128 lanes of PCIe to make this happen, right? But they're
Okay.
not using PCI Express protocol. You
Right.
can't plug in an NVMe drive at the end of it and hope that it will work, right?
you can to
take
the other
take out the
64 lanes.
processor out of the socket, jam in an NVMe drive, and
Sebastian, paging
Sp- you know,
Sebastian.
Sebastian can.
wire up the pins so that they match.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems reasonable to me. But
Well, if you got another 64 lanes, just put it hanging off of that. So fine.
let's talk about some other stuff. GDC was last week. This came out. I think this came out the day our podcast went live. The Oculus Rift Plus Touch combo is now $200 less than it was before. It's actually pretty significant. You can get the Oculus Rift plus the touch controllers for $599 right now. And
$599.
as of when
Thank
this
you.
article was written last week, the Vive was still
Thank you.
$799.
Yeah, and the touch controllers to buy them separately is $100.
Yeah, which I think is lower than it used to be because I think I paid $199 for them initially, and now they're $99. So you can get just the Rift by itself for $499, just the touch controllers for $999 if you already have the Rift.
Yep.
So they took $100 off of each product, put it down into a bundle for $598. To me,
That's competitive.
that's great, right?
They
Have they
needed to
changed
do
the price on the Vive? What's the Amazon? Click that link right there. Oh, I just clicked it because
I
it's
don't think they
touchscreen.
have responded yet.
Vive.
I don't know that they have to.
Why is that not?
$775 still on Amazon, so they
Yeah.
have not. Okay. I will say
But
I
that's for the goggles, the room cameras, and
Yes.
the controllers, isn't it?
Yeah. And with the Rift, you get two cameras, all the stuff you need. You get you get an Xbox controller with the Rift.
Does the current group of the Rift come with a third camera?
No. Third camera is totally separate.
So even
because
the
they don't even really
package-
recommend it.
Oh, okay.
It's more of a what are they like a in development
Okay.
beta feature to have the third camera behind you.
But you could get away with just one camera in front and one camera behind, and it kind of sort of.
No.
No?
In order to set it up, you have two cameras set up. Kind of. We can't. Can you see those on our desk? You
There's
can. They're
one
just
over
don't
here.
touch them. Don't move them. I had it all configured.
I was just putting my hand in front.
Oh,
of it.
okay.
There you go.
We have these Oculus things set up for the live stream we're going to have with Tom tomorrow, and I was playing some of this Robo Recall, make sure it worked while sitting in that position, and it worked really well.
So you're supposed to have them on the desk, kind of like at like
3 to 6 feet apart,
speaker position.
3 to 6 feet apart, centered on your display.
Okay.
Right now, I mean, you could really move them anywhere you want.
Sure.
Right. That's just what they recommend, and so, but regardless of what it is, like $200 price drop is good. Trying to get more people into that medium. So if you've been interested, the touch controllers make the Rift way closer to being
like a Vive.
Well, like the best choice. I still think I would pick, if I could only pick one, I'd probably still pick the Vive. But Oculus has like a really good software strategy in terms of like, what would you call it?
What?
They're pushing more of development themselves, right? Like they're funding people to do development. They have some of these exclusive games. Although you can run your Rift on Steam now.
They're throwing
too.
more money at it.
That's true.
Is what you're saying.
Interestingly, if you buy a Rift with Oculus Touch, you can run it on Steam VR games.
Oh, really?
But you can't run Steam VR
I
games
didn't know that.
without hacking it
And
through
using Revive.
to
Yeah.
run on Rift games.
Oh, so everything just maps over? Like
I think so. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I might have to.
It might be game to game, but most games I've seen have it.
Huh.
You can just look at the
Yeah,
little icons
Revive-
on the thing.
Yeah, it was mostly game to game that.
Okay. Still cool. $600 instead of $800.
Oh, yeah.
$600 is still a lot. Don't get me wrong.
But
But
it's less money.
it's less by $200 by my math. YouTube is starting their own TV service for $35 a month. And in
Guess
normal,
YouTube Red really paid off, didn't
I
it?
guess. And in normal Google fashion, we have no idea what it's going to be. Just sign up. Give us your email address, please, and we'll tell you when it's ready.
Yeah, I did see a list of channels that looked promising.
But you didn't see them from Google.
That was a slide from Google.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't. Yeah.
It's less channels than Sling TV. It's less channels than DirecTV Now.
Right.
But it's most of the channels you care about. It's $35 per month.
And then like
Their
5 devices,
shtick
5 or 6
here-
logins.
6 logins.
Yeah.
Their shtick will be that they're supposed to have the locals. That's why they want to know your zip code. They only want to bring people in when they have the locals. That's the biggest headache for all cord cutting at this point is can you get the local channels?
Yep.
That's why I had to buy a 3-foot by 3-foot antenna to put in my attic for the cord cutting project that I am planning to undertake. So YouTube TV. You can just, what is that? YouTube.com/
It's just TV.
tv.youtube.com.
Yeah.
Sure, why not? Should check that out if you guys are interested.
Even if you're not interested, you should go there, put your name in, and give your zip code so that because the more demand they see, the more likely they are to have locals in all those places.
Jeremy, what is your story here about the Wi-Fi market being murky, like the hi-fi market? I mean, if you look at this router, how can you not understand immediately that Wi-Fi is simpler than it's ever been?
Well, because it's got the antennas, so obviously it's perfect.
Are you
right?
supposed to turn that upside down so it looks like a table?
And then walk around to get a better signal for you?
Maybe
That's kind of what I thought.
maybe there'll be gold-plated antennas next.
But that was one I snagged from Sebastian's review,
Okay.
where the poor guy tried to explain multi-user MIMO and just how much fun it was trying to benchmark that.
Yeah.
So I linked to that one as well, and I highly suggest reading it because understanding Wi-Fi is a pain in the noggin. Like, there is a lot going on, but ours decided to sort of delve into why it is that, I've got a 2.4 gigahertz router and it's supposed to do 1,000 megabits and I'm getting like 480 and I'm very upset about it. And people are telling you, no, dude, that's probably what you're going to get because a lot of the testing is done.
Because they add both bands together, first of all, to come up with their rating.
And you might be in a completely sealed Faraday cage with just the receiver and the router, and you might be less than 5 feet away from it with perfect line of sight.
Yep.
And there's 200 megs of overhead that just has to exist for TCP/IP.
I mean, yeah, it is definitely a best case scenario that they're talking about.
So they try and explain just why it is that, when you buy that fancy arse new router that claims all of these things on the front of the package, why it's like buying a hi-fi stereo and not quite realizing the difference between the $10,000 one and the $300 one from 10 years ago.
It's like getting the awesome.
There are some differences, but
it's like getting
you
the
gotta know
awesome
what they are.
receiver, but your speakers are still crap.
Yeah. So it's worth delving into. It's a couple of pages long. There is some. It does take a bit of thought, and it only scratches the surface of just Wi-Fi is a painful thing to try and test, let alone support.
Yeah.
Yeah, worth reading though if
Right.
you're curious.
Logitech introduced the G Pro mechanical gaming keyboard. So this is a 10 keyless keyboard, compact design. It has of course, it has RGB lighting effects. Let's be realistic, everybody. Short throw mechanical switches, but it has a removable USB cord.
It
Like
looks
one that
tiny.
unplugs from the back.
That looks familiar.
So it
That's-
does look very familiar, like the G900 mouse.
That is the same exact cord.
It's the exact same interface. Although I don't think the cables are interchangeable because the keyboard pulls a lot more power than the mouse.
Oh, yeah.
And
so
so
you're
there's
pushing it
different-
if you try to
Oh,
use the
that's
mouse cable.
disappointing.
Yeah, you can use the keyboard one on the mouse, but don't use the mouse one on the keyboard.
Yeah,
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Just a thought.
Does that
Well,
also
that's one
mean
thing
it's-
I've always liked about Logitech is like their little wireless dongle. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the one that sticks like a millimeter out of the side of your
Did you lose
laptop
all the time?
when you plug it in.
Yeah.
But you buy a new one and it works for everything.
Mhm.
It literally doesn't care what Logitech device you're using.
true.
It'll plug into it.
But wait,
I like that about Logi.
What is the point of this being detachable?
So the point of it being detachable is for people who go to LAN parties, like basically the wrapping the cable around the
Oh,
keyboard kind
okay.
of puts stress on it. This way you just disconnect it
Okay.
and you don't have to do
because
that.
it's not like this is wireless and you can run it without the,
There are some other interesting features in it as well. Like all the macros and settings are stored in the keyboard. So like if you take this from the computer or for, professional gaming situations, you're not allowed to install software on the machine, but you can, if it's stored on the hardware itself, you can use it.
Right.
So if you bring in your own keyboard, plug it in, then it has, whatever your predefined
Also
settings
very
would be.
handy having recently done a reinstall with a Corsair RGB keyboard where you have to like figure out how to export all of the settings from their software that you had.
Yeah.
And then figure out how to get it all back in when you do your reinstall.
Yeah.
Like after you've done your reinstall. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be nice for it just to all be in the keyboard and not have to worry about it.
I don't think 10 keyless keyboards aren't for me because I do like accounting bullcrap all the time. So
Yeah, you got to print out those checks.
unfortunately, yours got lost this week. Sorry.
I think all of ours got lost this week.
Yeah, it's been a rough week, everybody. Sorry about that. $129 is the MSRP. Logitech G Pro mechanical gaming keyboard. So I think that's shipping now. Now. We should have talked about this before. It's VR. I don't have anything to say about this other than LG at GDC announced that they were going to have a VR headset competitor that works with Steam VR. So it's a prototype. The tested guys, Adam Savage's tested. So that group over there got some hands-on time with it with the prototype. You can see the controllers. They look very Vive-ish.
Duck Huntish?
Yeah, that too. One of them does. So they say one change LG is proud of. This is Scott wrote this up, by the way. Is the second app button. Apparently, the company found that developers like to assign buttons in pairs, such as a forward button to go along with the back. So they added a second app button, so like an app assignable button to it. And all three are above the touchpad on it. Weight distribution is slightly adjusted compared to other controllers on the market. Unclear on when it will be shipping to market. Tess had speculated it could happen sometime later this year, which would put it just before when we expect the HTC Vive 2, but we really don't know if that's a thing yet either. But hey, we talked about lowering prices on the Rift.
Mm-hmm.
More competition will lower prices more, in theory, hopefully. So bring it on, I say. All right, Jeremy, how do you summarize ARM's announcements today, or Qualcomm's announcements today with the Centriq 2400?
It is the Centriq.
There's a system with a lot of hard drives in it here.
Yes, there is. and it may or may not be running Windows Server.
But the
Because
key here
that-
is it's a Quadro processor. Or I'm sorry, not a Quadro.
that was-
Qualcomm.
Yeah, it's an ARM V8. And it's obviously someone who's a fan of a certain novel because they named it the Falcor processor.
Nice.
For better or worse as it is. But when I first saw this announcement, I was kind of excited because they specifically stated Intel is currently running instances of Windows Server internally on Microsoft Azure. So they're doing it just internally. They're testing it out. But
You said
it frickin'
Intel,
runs.
but you didn't mean Intel.
Or sorry, Microsoft,
There
not
you go.
Intel.
If
Microsoft
Intel was
is
running,
actually running it. Yeah, that would be even more interesting.
I'm sure they are for competitive reasons, but yeah.
And maybe AMD could work on that as well,
Yeah.
because we got some promises from them about this. But no, it's just sort of impressive that Microsoft is saying that, yeah, we've got a version of Windows Server that will run on a Buddy ARM processor, and it works.
Cool.
So that was really exciting. Called in and listened to Anand Shidar-Escobar, who's obviously a very intelligent man, but wouldn't give any performance details whatsoever. So it's kind of hard to say how many of these you're going to need, but they submitted to the Open Compute Project. So it's going to match the sort of the standards of the next generation of servers we're going to see come in, which
Interesting.
are piles and piles of low power CPUs racked together, working together.
Yeah.
It's got 32 lanes of PCIe 3.0,
Okay.
which is
good.
pretty decent for an ARM processor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
8 SATA ports, Gigabit E Ethernet, as well as a backup 50 gigabits. NVMe completely supported. They had one of the prototypes with 20 NVMe drives in it, and still enough space for a PCIe 16 by slot left. Some of it's designed for high performance computing, so it will work with your new Pascals, the Fire Pros from AMD,
Weird.
or you can pop in your own field programmable array. So it's kind of interesting to see this, and it's Qualcomm, so you know they're not one of these. There's been a
Fly
lot
by
of
night?
ARM processors that say we're going to be running Windows Server in no time at all,
Yeah.
and none of them have made it to market.
Qualcomm is
Not a
also
si-
Qualcomm's is the company that has announced they're going to have Snapdragon based Windows 10 devices
Yep.
as well.
Yeah,
Right.
and we've seen that running.
This is
Like,
clearly
it's-
part of the same initiative between Qualcomm and Microsoft in that regard.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Yeah,
Well, I
absolutely.
mean, if you get the kernel running on one, and server is just not that
Yeah.
far away, so
Yeah. I mean, it's more complicated, but not fundamentally different.
not fundamentally different. No.
So it's kind of exciting until you realize you don't see any results whatsoever. We've got no benchmarks. I'm
Sure.
going to take my eyes onto OPC tomorrow, or OCP rather tomorrow, which is where they're announcing this. Wow, my connection is amazing. So we'll sort of see if they do anything during this
Yeah,
major
agreed.
announcement to see how it's going to be performing. But just the fact that they've pulled it off is kind of interesting, and I'm kind of curious how Naples and what Intel is going to be putting out for low power in the server room is going to deal with the fact that, hey, ARM has actually pumped up their power enough to be able to do it. And yeah, the picture of that motherboard is pretty damn sweet. It's big enough you can read
We
all
can read the
components
QR
on it.
codes. QDF 2400 reference evaluation platform.
It's red.
It is red. There's a PCIe slot. There's one.
I'm looking for the SATA controller,
It's
That's
the,
on the SoC,
MTech
right?
thing on
the
Oh,
Marvell.
Would you write down?
Yeah.
Right. There. No.
There you go. Oh, maybe not.
No.
The-
I
the
think it's up
A-speed?
a little bit.
No, that's the
Up.
that's the
Now go over a
gigabit.
little bit.
This
There
thing?
you go.
The Marvell. That might be
Marvell.
that's not the
Yeah,
Ethernet.
it's probably Marvell.
Yeah, that could be it.
And remember, these are SoCs, so you will
It's right
find
by the
more on
LAN
that chip than you might
controllers.
expect.
yeah. Yeah. Look at them DIMM slots. Look at the detail on that.
Oh.
768 gigs max,
It's a really
if you can find
it's a really damn good picture.
the DIMMs to fill
It is.
in.
It is a quality photo.
So
IRC
if you're
is
interested,
asking.
I highly suggest looking at it.
Go
What's-
ahead, Alex.
IRC is asking, does it come with RGB?
Oh,
Oh yeah, I don't think so.
The RGB lighting would have
It
to
comes
be-
with green.
it would have to be
Only
outside.
green on the front. Green blinks on, green blinks
Yes.
off.
That's pretty RGB-ish.
That's just G lighting.
All right, what else? Too quick. That's it for the shows. We've got our hardware, software picks of the week. They're going up this week, and here, I guess I'll just go ahead and show what mine was. Mine is the Nintendo Switch. I was talking about this a little bit before we started recording the show. People were asking about whether or not I liked it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's $300. That's expensive.
Mhm.
Zelda, $60, and it's the only game. Really,
So how much did that game cost you?
$360.
Yeah.
But it's really good. I don't know. I can show it on here, and it kind of, whatever. You can see it right there. So, I mean, it's essentially a NVIDIA Tegra powered tablet with 2 controllers on the side. You can see I'm on my horsey there.
Do those controllers separate or?
Yeah. So if I hit, on the
do you
side, if
gotta
I hit this button, little controllers come off, right? And now the idea here is it's got a kickstand on it. And so when Alan and I go to the park together, which we do all the time, we can set this on the picnic table, and he can take this controller, and I can take this controller, and then now we're playing whatever little
sideways.
mini games with it that way. And then when I get bored of Alan, because whatever,
That's pretty boring.
I just slide it back on here, and now
so
it's
that like the buttons just orient the right way. Since
notice that there's a
one's on top,
one on that, one's on that, so that you rotate that way.
Interesting.
And then it's got a dock, so it's got a USB-C connection on the bottom, and you dock it into the dock. It's got HDMI and power, connects up to your TV,
Does
and
it
then
charge?
these controllers come off. There's like, you can actually just play it like this if you want,
Does it charge the
or there's a
controllers?
little
Like,
thing.
does that charge the controllers? Because something has to charge those. Right? Like, how does that work?
I think this battery runs out before these batteries.
Okay.
So, like, basically what that would allow you to
So
do.
those last 4 hours then.
So,
meaning that the controllers will just recharge when that is being recharged.
yes.
Okay, so you would have
But
to have
like
them.
if this is almost dead and these controllers are still have some battery life, that's good, because then when you dock it, it can charge and you can continue playing your game for a little while. Right?
Right. But then what happens? Okay, so now you're still playing a game, and those controllers are dying
Yeah, that's
at some point.
No,
right?
that's a bad deal.
But now you go back to being on the go. You're recharge the base units or the
Yeah, if it's plugged in, it's recharging the controllers at the
and
same
then
time.
you redock the
Yeah.
controllers, and then
Yeah.
will the controllers charge?
Yeah.
Or do they just
No, they charge.
kind of hang out at?
No, they charge.
All right.
It's right. It's out of the box. That's the only way they charge. Actually,
Okay.
is through that. The Joy-Con grip that comes with it, that these attach to for like when you're playing on a TV,
Right.
which is like a dummy piece of plastic in the middle that these attach
Oh,
to.
so it's the same size.
It's a little bit smaller. It's more like a normal controller.
Oh, okay.
But it does not have any charging capability. There's an accessory you can buy that is the exact same dummy grip with like a power cable out the bottom of it that will charge the controller
it'll charge
separately.
them, yeah.
But I think that's like $60 or something stupid. I haven't had any issues with it yet, but I've only had it a week, and I've only played Zelda for 4 or 5 hours or something at this point.
I can see like a heat pipe in there.
Yeah. If you look into this camera over here, let me see what we got. It's kind of hard to see.
It's really hard to see. It's got the light's
but
got to
like right
reflect on
here where this vent is.
Yeah.
There's
on
a fan.
On the bottom edge, there's a heat pipe. You could see a copper heat pipe. You
Yeah,
have to spin it around.
and there's a fan.
There's a fan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actively cooled. I mean, it's a Tegra GPU
Yeah, I
running at a
guess.
pretty
Fair enough.
high speed. Yeah, I can't really see it. It's a neat device. I wouldn't buy it yet unless you really love Zelda, because there's really nothing else to play for it yet.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things, but so far for me, it's been great. My wife and kids are watching TV. I can play this, or I'm in bed and I can play it for an hour after my wife has fallen asleep, and I don't have to worry about bothering anybody with that. So it's a neat little toy. So Ken says in the chat that he played Zelda on the airplane on the way to New Orleans today, and it was totally worth it. So it was a 90-minute flight, and the battery was about 50% when he was done, which jives with what their
Seems
expectations
about
were. $299 for the console. When it's in stock, it's sold out everywhere. $60 for the game. So there you have it. So let's see who's next. We got Jeremy up next. What do you got?
Well, I usually leave my bitterness of Microsoft at work, but this one truly ticked me off.
Okay.
I'm part of the Windows Insider, and this is probably the exact same in the US as it is in Canada, but our Canadian listeners, if you would like to follow my link and talk to Microsoft Tech Support, as I did twice, if you sign up for this lovely little Windows Insider newsletter, and you happen to be an enthusiast who only builds your own systems
Mm-hmm.
and has not bought a Surface or a laptop, you're not allowed to continue.
Wait,
Okay.
what?
Down at the very bottom is a current devices. Scroll down just a bit, and you can see it.
What's that?
So there is no checkbox beside other. So if other is home-built systems are the devices that you own, you can't join their newsletter.
Are you sure like it doesn't let you complete it?
I've talked to Microsoft Tech Support twice about this.
Interesting.
So I'm not just like it pissed me off, but I followed what I should do and did it. And so technically, I use an Asus motherboard. So that is sort
Even
of a
though you
device.
hate
That's
Asus
not what they're asking.
because you were molested.
I was, but that was back during the VIA chipset days.
I mean,
was
it's
a
not.
dark
It's not like
time.
it's not like it's checking anything, right? So you just pick Asus, like, you know.
Yeah, but that's the point. I am an enthusiast. I don't buy pre-built systems, and I want to provide
I'm gonna
feedback
check
to them
all of
as
them.
an enthusiast,
That's true.
not as someone who buys a pre-built system.
Yep.
And if I had, because literally I went through every single thing, and the only way that I could actually technically check would be my motherboard. If I had a Gigabyte motherboard, then yeah, I wouldn't even have that technicality. So I would love it if you wouldn't mind clicking through and contacting Windows support to say, hey, I am an enthusiast and I'm not allowed to sign up for your Windows Insider newsletter because I'm an enthusiast.
Fair enough. There you go.
Rant over.
Josh.
Me?
Yes, you.
Why would I want to talk to you people?
Okay. Next, Alan. Oh wait, Josh. Fine.
Didn't
Okay,
even put the
I,
proper link in.
I bought this. I installed it this evening. I've done
Ooh.
a very minimal amount of
Yeah.
benchmarking, and it's faster than anything I've seen.
Okay.
It's 480 gigs at $199.99.
$199.99.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you. It's in stock in Amazon. If you use the PC per code, we'll be happy as well. But you can get a fast M.2. It says 2.6 down to what, 1.3? Right?
Yeah.
So it's going
I
to be a
think it's-
fast reader.
Yeah.
You could use this as your OS drive. You could use this as your gaming drive,
Yeah.
Yep.
which is kind of fun. Load times, down to very little. I mean, this is 3 to 4 times faster.
Very,
Even
very
How
technical.
small is it, Josh?
It's so
li-
small.
so little.
But
It's
I was
like
curious.
1/3 the size of a regular DIMM module
Oh,
for
yeah.
your main memory. It's small.
There's a Phison
Light.
E7 controller in there for those curious.
Yeah.
All right. Very cool.
I mean, I'm not talking. It's not going to be a 960 Pro.
No, it's
It's
not.
not
But it
going to
is.
be a 960 Evo.
It is among the top of the NVMe SSDs in our charts.
Yeah, it's up there, and it's $199.
Yep.
99.
What is it, Josh?
$199.99.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. And thank you.
You gotta do third of the audience, third of the audience,
Yeah.
third of the
Yeah.
audience.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Alan, what do you got?
So something came up earlier today, and I figured, what the heck, I'll turn into a pick. So a while ago, I bought a pretty cheap large format printer.
This one?
That one in particular, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I bought the Mark 1 version of it, but Canon Pro 9000, right?
Okay.
They make a Mark 2 now, but it's basically the same as the Mark 1. And if you can find one, I got mine off of just like Craigslist or whatever locally for like $100,
Yeah.
right? They're online there for more than that. But if you look around, you'll see people selling off like the Mark 1 if they wanted to buy the Mark 2 or just
Sure.
something else, right? But
Michael Sherlock did an unboxing in his pajama pants.
Cool. So for a couple $100, $200, $300, maybe $400 if you want like, eBay in a box or whatever, like brand new in a box. That's still a pretty good price for something that you can print on.
What is large format or wide format? What's a size I can print up to?
Well, I printed, and actually the reason that I bring this up is because Ryan found this cool 4004 Intel CPU thing on eBay.
Nice.
Somebody was making a poster of these and selling them on eBay for like $50. And I was like, wait, the 4004 print is open source. So why don't I just print it out on my printer, right? So I just downloaded
On
it.
11 by 17?
Printed it, and no, that is 13 by 19. So this printer, I believe, will print 14 inches wide, and it'll go longer than 19
You saved
inches.
a lot of money for Ryan.
Okay,
Well, I
I'm
mean,
more impressed than I thought I was.
Did you 3D print the frame?
No. That frame was a pick like about 6 months back. Those are those really cheap.
Oh, you bought them in groups?
They're on Amazon for like a pack of 6 for like $10 or something.
Did you buy those wafers off eBay?
I
Ryan?
did.
Oh, yeah?
I can't wait to see them.
What'd you get?
Earlier today, Josh linked some wafers, some like Intel. Oh no, they were AMD wafers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the AMD ones were the cheap ones.
Yeah, it's
Nat
weird.
Semi and a couple others.
One of them was
6
like
wafers
a
for
pack
like
of 8
$49
for
bucks.
a pack of 8 wafers for $50.
Are we talking?
Not
like,
new stuff.
But how big?
1990s.
Yeah, like 90s.
So they're like 300?
They're 6-inch wafers.
Okay.
Yeah. But I bought that, and then there was another one that was like a set of 2 that was like $30 or something like that I
Yeah.
bought. And then I was like, that's kind of interesting. I wonder how much the Intel ones were. And I looked up like
That was like 500
I
bucks.
forget which one it was. It was like $4.99. I was
This is
like,
a 386.
was it a 386?
Oh. Well.
I saw. Yeah. Well.
So, and it's not just good for like prints like that. Like, I mean, you can print out family photos. Like, I mean, just think of like the printer will pay for itself reasonably quickly if you're printing out large prints and like putting stuff up in your house.
Yeah.
Right. So just, it's handy to have something like
For
that around.
$400.
Yeah.
How much
for, like,
is what's the ink investment? into
you
this?
can get a full round of ink for those for like $120 for the actual Canon ink. If you find, I think on Amazon you can find it for like $120, $130 for, and it's
what's
8 cartridges.
What's that last you? I mean, I know it's an impossible question to answer, but
I've done, at the rate it's going, I could probably do like, you're talking like full color, like dark-ish kind of prints
like
on that
like
size.
say I was printing out pictures of my daughter.
You could probably get away with like 15 or 20 on a round of ink.
Oof.
Of that size,
Yeah.
right?
Oof.
You gotta realize it's pretty big. Like that's a lot of
Yeah,
ink
I
you're
get
throwing
it.
down on the page.
$120 for a set of ink, 15. So you're talking $8 a picture.
Yeah. If you were doing 8x10s on that thing, like
Yeah.
you'd get easily twice as much,
Sure.
out of it.
I'm just gonna grow soy ink in my backyard, maybe.
Soy ink.
That's what I'm.
I
gonna
think
do.
I think
Hey, you might make a fortune off of it.
color calibration might be a pain in the butt in that case.
Oh well.
Anyway.
All right. So that's it for the show this week, guys. Thank you everybody for joining us. PCPer.com/ just PCPer.com actually is the URL to the website where all the reviews are at, all the stories, everything that you're supposed to be interested in if you're listening to this podcast. And of course, PCPer.com/podcast is the URL to get all of our back episodes of the show, the video links, the MP3 direct download links, RSS files, catch up on any episodes that you missed. Make sure you don't miss out on any of the future episodes. We would encourage you to do that. And again, of course, PCPer.com/live or /subscribe will get you to where you'll be notified when we do these live streams. And don't forget, if you're watching live or you're listening on Thursday morning, Thursday, March 9th in the afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern, Tom Peterson will be here in the office. We're going to talk about GTX 1080 Ti as well as FCAT VR testing, and we'll be giving away a GTX 1080 Ti.
Oh, yeah.
So another
And
reason to say
while
that.
that's going on, Sebastian will be covering Twitch.
Yeah.
Because the chat's asking.
Yeah. Sebastian will be on This Week in Computer Hardware for me.
Yep.
Unless they just want to pipe it in, they can catch like an hour of the stream and just
Sure.
put that in there instead. It's totally up to them.
They'll just MST 3K.
Throw Patrick up on the TV.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
Bye.
Yeah, the 4 of us have a kitchen.
Start recording again.
I do not.
Oh, you already did?
I've got a bathroom with a sink and a microwave and a laundry
That
room.
creates a
He
second
just,
file?
he just keeps it going. He just
Oh,
Yeah, I can split it in post.
risky move.
Ah.
So it was like back when you were a nurse, right?
What are
I
we
was
talking
never a
about?
nurse.
I know, but it makes a good joke.
Excuse me, guys.
gotta go back to your Zelda.
How's your horsey doing?
So here's like, I'm not a game reviewer, right? But and I find that as I have gotten older, my time to play games is minimized, right? Oop, that's a bunch of water. And as a result, I don't like games where I have to spend 10 minutes figuring out what I'm supposed to do next sometimes. And that sounds like an old man thing to say, right? Like,
Well, no, but especially when it's been a week and a half since you last played it.
yeah. And you, like with this game, it would be really hard. Like, here's what's going on right now. I'm literally stuck and I don't know how to get out of the location I'm at. Except to do the fast teleport, like the what they call it, the
tilde no clip. Oh wait, there's no keyboard.
the
right?
fast travel system is what I'm thinking of. But if I fast travel, I have this cool horse. If I fast travel, I'm pretty sure the horse doesn't come with me, and I would be sad if I lose the horse.
Oh,
Let's do it anyway. Let's see what happens.
your horse has died of dysentery.
Click. Wait, why can't I?
Welcome to our new segment. Watch Ryan try and remember how to play a game.
Yeah.
This isn't a benchmark. What do I do now?
There's a lot of that involved in this. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, in terms of email, BioStar contacted us.
Oh,
What
okay.
do they got?
Yeah, they get a B350 that they want.
Okay.
That they
Look at.
won.
So they want you to look at.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's fun and
A
interesting.
teeny one or a big one?
Mini.
Why won't it
Small.
Let me go to that place.
Put in a small case.
Son of
Enjoy.
a bitch.
Tiny. I like them tiny.
So confused. I hate everything. So yeah, I do like the Switch actually quite a bit. Yeah, no, it just teleported me right off that horse. Just right off of it. Oh. That's really disappointing. Now I'm gonna have to like walk everywhere. How many dead pixels are on my screen? None that I've seen.
Oh, good. Because apparently that's normal. Having dead pixels is normal. Nintendo's marketing team is pretty impressive right now.
Reforming, no horse involved. All right. What if I whistle for him? Whistling for my horse. It seems Anna couldn't hear my call. Shit, I'm done with this game now. Have I tried? No, I did not try licking the game cartridges. That is apparently they taste bad.
They put a bittering agent on it.
Why would they do that? So kids don't eat
Because
them?
people want to lick
Ask
it.
your kid.
Something.
Ask Emmeline.
Oh, Christ. Emmeline is actually, so she's 20 months old, and she's never eaten things she's not supposed to eat,
Okay.
actually. The dogs do it
Clever
all the
girl.
time. But she's not like, you know, I would feel comfortable giving her small toys and not like her choking on them because of that. I'm trying to think of like what, like, do you know what Shopkins are? Anybody know what Shopkins are?
No.
Shopkins are tiny toys, like the size of thimble-ish, that are food items with like character faces and stuff. And they're opened in packages that are like baseball cards where the rarity is of import, right? It's like you open it up and you look it up online. I got a
you
rare...
want to eat something, but you
So
can't
they're your
Strawberry
eat it.
toys,
shortcake.
not hers.
Say again, Jeremy?
They're your toys, not hers. Then.
No, she actually doesn't have any yet, but her cousins have them. And so she plays with them all the time. But like we were at my niece's birthday party this weekend, and like she got some for her birthday, and it was like wanted to open up and see how rare the pieces were. And then she went about stacking them. My daughter went about putting them all on the TV stand, like OCD style, one in a row, so they're all facing the same direction type of thing, and then taking her hand across the whole thing and whapping them all off on the floor, and then walking away. It's like, great, good job, kid. That's how we do this, especially when there's somebody else's toys. Ugh.
Well, you guys don't remember the original Battlestar Galactica toys?
No.
The kids were launching the torpedoes down their trachea and choking to death.
Were they
It was the
metal
only
torpedoes?
toy that shot back in those days.
Really?
No, it was
G.I.
red
Joes didn't.
plastic.
G.I. Joe's didn't, but the Battlestar Vipers and the Cylon discs did. It was lovely.
Yeah, the kids would put them in their mouth and they'd shoot them down there and they'd choke and it'd be awful and people died and they had a massive recall and suddenly toys were not nearly as fun as they used to be.
Josh, they took our lawn darts
Yeah,
away.
that's what I was gonna say. You know, a couple
They
kids get their
did.
skulls impaled and they take away all the lawn darts, right? Like
I know.
It's Darwinian in his
I remember
Darwinism in
as a
action.
kid, my uncle had a set of these, and we'd only go over to his house like at 4th of July parties and Labor Day parties and stuff. And he had 2 go-karts,
Nice.
lawn darts, and something else, right? And we would literally, people would be driving the go-karts around, and we thought it'd be funny to throw the darts up in the air and see if we could hit the go-karts, right?
Yeah.
And I
Not
look
the
back
person
like,
in it,
and
but
I'm
the
looking,
go-kart.
and I'm looking back, it's like, wow, we are stupid. Like,
Yeah, but we live.
and then all of our parents were, 50 yards away at the picnic tables, drinking beer, hanging out, and pointing and laughing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I would freak out if
one
my
of them
daughter
didn't
was
have
out there
an
and that was
airsoft
happening.
rifle trying to pick off the lawn darts as they were coming down.
Oh. And it was at the 4th of July party, like they would let us have all the fireworks and stuff, and there's barns full of hay in the yard that could have easily caught on fire.
So you actually didn't catch anything on fire?
No, we all lived.
No, we never
could all
did.
count
Oh,
to 10
I
without
did.
taking our pants
Yeah.
off. It was fine.
Firemen were called. Field on
I
fire.
can count to
not good.
17.
I mean, as recently as 2 years ago, we started like when all of my friends have kids now. We do 4th of July very differently. Like it's okay, we're gonna go to somebody's yard and we're gonna set up little bottle rockets and those little fountains and things, and then the kids are scared, go inside the house, and then eventually when all the kids go to sleep, we find like all leftover Roman candles and run around and like
And shoot each
battle
other.
each other with them and shoot them at
Yes.
each other. Yeah, exactly. And the wives are not okay with it until the kids are asleep. And they're like, whatever, idiots, do whatever you're going to do. Like, that's right.
Testosterone is a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man. So tomorrow morning, the 980 Ti review will be up. The 1080 Ti review will be up tomorrow morning. And tomorrow afternoon, Tom will be here. And like I said, for a late start because I have a court trial to be at in the morning tomorrow. Tom laughingly said, "Well, if you're in jail, he'd come bail me out." I don't think you. Well, I guess I could go to jail if I was in court. If I was just like in contempt, right?
Yeah.
Like if I just told the judge to f right off enough times, he'd probably put me in jail.
Keep telling Ryan he needs to.
Probably.
I keep telling Ryan he
Tom
needs to do
just
the
literally
Futurama
gave
thing.
you a get out of jail free card.
Or not the
that's
Futurama
true.
thing. That
That's
wasn't
true.
Futurama.
Print
What's that
that out,
damn-
get it notarized
Rick
before
and
you go
Morty.
down.
Yeah, Rick and Morty. Ryan needs to do the Rick and Morty court case thing in there.
I don't know if they let me do live streams from jail, Technoscope.
No.
Maybe if I can make that my one call. It needs to be a
My
Skype
one-
call, sir.
Hour and a half call.
Ryan Schroet brings you Prisoners Gone Wild.
Let me give you my opinion on the GTX 1080 Ti, since I will never see one for the next 6 months.
We're like visiting Ryan, and he's like,
No, I'm not
Did you-
defending the tax practices of the Church of Higher Processing.
Haha.
Oh man. What else? Ken is in New Orleans today learning about gigabit LTE from Sprint. And apparently he went to the Pelicans basketball game in the box suite without me. I'm very upset.
Oh, nice.
Probably won't bring you a T-shirt back either.
Son of a bitch.
It's a bastard that way.
So yeah, tomorrow live stream it'll just be Alex is gonna be in charge of shit. So you're gonna be able to handle that?
I hope so.
Alan will be here too
Oh, we're screwed.
as a backup. Are you playing Eve?
No, I'm downloading.
Are you
shit on it.
spreadsheeting Eve?
No.
Oh. Because that's literally the same thing.
It is spreadsheets online.
What about Josh? What are you working on? Jeremy, what are you working on? Alan, anything? What are you guys doing?
970 motherboard review, and then afterwards a 1070 GTX review.
Okay. All right.
I have
I'm
several
getting a lot of
M.2.
emails from ARM people after covering the Qualcomm launch.
Yeah, it's
See how that goes.
Oh,
yeah. When you
I
write
kinda
a
knew it
story
was gonna
about that,
happen.
yeah.
I got a few M.2
That's why I
pieces
don't
coming
cover
up.
Power 9.
Actually, one of the pieces I have coming up is Josh's BPX SSDs, all 3 capacities.
Ooh.
Yeah. Spreadsheets in space, says the chat.
Nice.
Space.
So yeah, we're gonna demo VR capture, and VR performance testing tomorrow. So hopefully that all works. It's the first time we've had this many systems connected to the live stream, I think, before.
We should have hooked up.
We have systems connected to systems, and then those systems are connected into the capturing
Well, it's
pipeline.
we are able to capture direct from systems now, which we weren't able to do before properly, right? Because it wouldn't.
No, we could.
What did you just pour, Jeremy?
Well, I thought the capture card wouldn't lock on to specific output, like because it wasn't a TV
See
specific.
if you can
Right.
read it.
But now it works, right?
Other way.
I
There
think
you
so.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm trying to dodge the reflection. It's
Something Ruby.
Gypsy Tears. Ruby Gypsy Tears.
Where are you going with the camera?
I'm trying to dodge the
What do you-
light.
What?
I'm not
what
sure
are
what
you
he's doing.
looking at?
It's a beer.
Oh,
See, but the reflection is just killing
it's really
everything.
hard to see that guy over there because it's dark.
Dark.
But it's a
See,
ruby
look
ale.
at that.
Oh,
Look at that. There's
Elysian.
no reflection.
Oh,
It's weird.
So
Yeah,
strange.
you've got overhead lighting.
But I'm
Mine
kind
is
of
coming
blue,
directly
so
at me.
you know.
what happened to the? Or is it just off the screen where our shot is?
Yeah, our shot is off the screen a little bit. It's fine.
Yeah, I took the rundown off.
Might be.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
run
this-
away
there-
unless
there's
you
all the
have
machines.
anything else.
All
You
of
need
them.
to talk
Normally,
about.
Alex has the cables all neatly run, but
It got away from us.
yeah, it definitely
Yeah.
did.
It's only a
do
temporary
that.
thing, so you know.
Yeah, it's all be torn down tomorrow.
Internet connection
Okay.
problem.
So 4 p.m. tomorrow Eastern,
Internet
1 p.m. Pacific. Otherwise, figure it out in your own time zone.
2 p.m.
And
now.
That's like
Sure.
what 3:30 a.m. India time.
no clue. That's why I specifically said everybody else should figure it out for them damn selves. So yeah, let's disconnect. I got to go
Yep.
wear a suit tomorrow morning.
All right. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, man.
I'm finally. I'm.
He ain't get no coroner's report.
I didn't get no autopsy
He
report.
ain't get no autopsy report. He ain't get no crime scene pictures. Have you not seen that?
And that weren't never
Nope.
me anyway.
Yeah, no, I saw it.
Okay.
All right, guys, we're gonna get out of here. Have a good night, and
Good night.
hopefully I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.
Good
Thanks
night.
for watching. Talk at you tomorrow.